Is Toyota and Honda reliability going downhill? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. 2024 was a bit of a turbulent year for Honda and Toyota. Both companies experienced a few large-scale severe recalls and quality complaints that began to shake consumer confidence in these two brands, which historically have a reputation for extremely strong reliability. So what exactly happened, and should you be concerned about the reliability of these brands moving forward? Well, let's start where things all began to fall apart, starting with the recalls. In 2024, a major recall was announced on the Toyota Tundra. Toyota introduced an all-new design of the Tundra for 2022, which included new technology and an all-new engine, a twin-turbo V6 engine, which replaced the well-proven and extremely reliable 5.7-liter V8 engine that Toyota had used for ages. Unfortunately though, as we know, sometimes with brand new technology it can lead to problems, and that's exactly what happened here. Supposedly, due to a manufacturing defect, metal debris was not properly cleaned from the engines during manufacturing, and this could eventually cause complete engine failure. As a result, over 100,000 Tundras made between 2022 to 2023 were recalled, and the problem also affected a handful of Lexus LX600s, and even some newer Tundras which seem to continue to be affected by the problem. Now the good news is that Toyota did step up and do the right thing by replacing the engines on all the affected Tundras. So if you purchased one of these Tundras with one of the defect engines, Toyota is going to install a completely brand new engine. But the issues don't stop there. There were also some issues with the brand new Toyota Tacoma as well. Like the Tundra, Toyota completely redesigned the Tacoma and introduced a lot of new technology, including a new turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and an 8-speed automatic transmission. Unfortunately, a relatively small number of owners, roughly 1,000 or so, experienced failures with the 8-speed automatics, which Toyota addressed through a technical service bulletin, or TSB, replacing the transmissions under warranty. Luckily, as mentioned, this only affected a small number of units and typically only happened at extremely low mileage. Now, this wasn't the end of problems with these two trucks. As mentioned, both of them had been completely redesigned with new technology and brand new engines and transmissions. And as is often the case with all manufacturers, anytime they introduce something that's completely brand new and highly advanced and high-tech, you can sometimes lead to certain problems. Now, moving on to Honda. Honda experienced its own fair share of recalls over the past year, some of which were quite severe. The most significant of these is a recall from 2023, which involved 250,000 vehicles with the 3.5-liter V6 engine. Later in 2024, this recall was expanded into an investigation of nearly 1.4 million vehicles with this engine. This includes the Honda Pilot, the Ridgeline, the Odyssey, the Acura TLX, and MDX, all made between 2016 to 2020 with the 3.5-liter V6. The problem is that the connecting rod bearings in some of these engines could fail, causing complete engine failure. The problem seems to affect the Acura models more than the Honda models. But either way, the crucial point to understand with this particular recall is that the vast overwhelming majority of these vehicles with the affected engines between 2016 and 2020 do not have this problem. Out of the 1.4 million vehicles being investigated, only a few thousand are confirmed to have the problem and have received engine replacements. So if you own one of these models between 2016 to 2020, please don't be alarmed. The odds are overwhelmingly in your favor that all is going to be fine. Now, Honda's problems don't end there. Now, although this is not as serious as the engine recall, there was another major recall involving 1.7 million Honda vehicles for a defective steering gearbox, and another involving nearly 750,000 vehicles for defective fuel pumps. Very large recalls and certainly potentially serious if a problem were to occur. And of course, Honda has had other well-documented problems over the past few years, most notably with the 1.5-liter turbo engine, which is sometimes prone to oil dilution problems and head gasket failure under certain conditions. So, despite their reputations, Honda and Toyota are certainly far from perfect. They can experience the same kind of issues and recalls that affect all manufacturers at some point. But here's the major question. Do these recalls mean that both Honda and Toyota are no longer building reliable vehicles? And moving forward, are they moving down a pathway to making lower and lower quality vehicles as time goes on? Well, the short answer is absolutely not. And here's why. Firstly, these recalls are extremely isolated. They only affect a very specific vehicle or group of vehicles within a narrow age range. These were isolated issues tied to a manufacturing problem from a specific period, which were discovered and corrected. And that's usually the case with most recalls, which is why, more often than not, a recall alone is not enough to simply dismiss an entire vehicle that you should just stay away from. Recalls are a completely normal part of the auto industry, and they can happen to all manufacturers. The next important point to make is that just because one or two specific models had these problems for a few years doesn't mean that you can now generalize and say that the entire brand now has poor reliability. Just because Toyota is having a problem with the Tundra doesn't mean that every other Toyota now automatically has problems too. In fact, most of Toyota's lineup has absolutely nothing in common with the Tundra. So for all those who are constantly leaving comments saying, oh, well, just because there's a major Tundra recall means that all Toyotas now are automatically not reliable anymore, well, that seriously needs to stop, and they need to get off the crazy train. Because the reality is the total opposite. Toyota's other models, the ones which most consumers buy, such as the Corolla, the Camry, the RAV4, and others, continue to have excellent reliability and all remain some of the most dependable, longest-lasting vehicles that you can buy in today's market. The Consumer Reports reliability study is proof of this. The only reason Toyota did not come in first place this year, as they have for many years, for reliability is because they were dragged down by the Tundra and Tacoma with their specific issues. Every other Toyota received an excellent rating. And yes, Toyota has started to introduce more complicated technology into their vehicles, such as turbocharged engines. But you can still find plenty of vehicles that continue to use regular non-turbo engines and non-turbo hybrid engines if that's what you prefer. Toyota offers the choice. And it's a similar situation with Honda. Yes, they have had a few significant recalls and problem areas, but for the most part, Honda continues to have a very solid lineup of vehicles, most of which use well-proven, reliable, non-turbo four-cylinder engines, non-turbo hybrid engines, and even non-turbo V6 engines, which many consumers prefer. And this is why these brands continue to come near the very top in almost every major reliability survey and also every major owner satisfaction survey. And they also continue to maintain really high resale value. When it comes to used vehicles, oftentimes the most reliable vehicles are the ones that have the best resale value because used car buyers are looking for quality and reliability more than anything else. Yes, like other automakers, Honda and Toyota are introducing new technology to improve safety, improve fuel economy, reduce emissions, and match the expectations of today's consumers. And some are concerned that this march towards complexity will slowly compromise the reliability of these brands, as these recalls potentially demonstrated. To that I say this. The one important thing to understand about most Japanese brands, including Honda and Toyota, is that they often take an extremely conservative approach when it comes to introducing new technology. They take their time, they stick with what they know and what's proven to work, and only make big changes to their technology when they absolutely need to. This is why instead of introducing a new engine and transmission every few years, as other automakers do, they keep the same drivetrains for several years or longer, and just make small updates and refinements to them to make them as good as possible. And this is also why, rather than jumping into electric vehicles as others have, Honda and Toyota have stuck with refining their well-proven hybrid systems instead. They use this approach to maintain high-quality standards, and this is exactly why most of their vehicles continue to be so incredibly reliable and long-lasting. Both automakers continue to use this approach, producing vehicles that have extremely proven technology, simple, not too complicated, non-turbo engines, proven hybrid systems that they've been producing and refining for many years now. So you have lots of options to consider if you want a well-made, long-lasting vehicle. Now, Honda and Toyota are certainly not perfect, and sometimes new technology has problems that take time to sort out. But let's remember, going back into their history, there was never really a time when these automakers had perfect vehicles. I mean, just going back a few years, not too long ago, back in 2016, Toyota had problems when they first introduced their brand new 8-speed transmissions in the Lexus RX and the Toyota Highlander. And going even further back to around 2008, 2009, they used to have a lot of problems with their accelerator pedals and even oil consumption on the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engines. And going back even further than that to the early 2000s, frame rotting issues on the trucks like the Tacoma. And Honda, a very similar situation with them too. As I already mentioned, going back to 2017 with the 1.4, 1.5 turbo engine with its oil dilution problems, going further back to 2014 when they first introduced their CVT transmissions, which definitely had problems when they were first introduced, and even going as far back as the 1990s and early 2000s when Honda famously had all kinds of problems with their 4-speed and 5-speed automatic transmissions, which were well known for failing. There has never been a time in history when any company has been perfect. So let's just relax, not panic, and focus on the facts and big picture. All is fine with these Japanese brands, and they continue to be some of the best choices if you want the best shot at having a well-made, long-lasting vehicle. So there you have it. Now, if you enjoyed and got value out of this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.